Hey, it's Dieter and Hutch, and we're doing our position breakdowns before the 2025 NFL Draft. And Jake, today, arguably the toughest position to evaluate in all of the draft. Nothing to do with these players, nothing to do with this draft. It has everything to do with the challenge of finding good cornerbacks at the college level. The pro game and the college game so different, but we're going to do some early, middle, and late picks. These are our guys. We're planting flags right here and now. A little bit of a 49ers twinge, but we think it can apply to all fan bases. Cornerbacks, listen, everyone needs them. We got a couple for you here. What do you make of this class, though, overall with corners? We've gotten a lot of looks at a lot of different guys. You have any feel on the class overall?
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. I think I wouldn't say it's totally top heavy. I think there's some talent in the middle rounds to be found. I'm having a little trouble in the late rounds finding guys that are sneaky good.
Yeah.
There's sometimes you find some really physical corners who just sort of hang around late that can be really interesting. But I haven't totally found that niche yet. So finding the late round guys has been a struggle. But there are some guys towards the top, towards the middle, I've liked quite a bit. There's other positions, like defensive tackle and some other ones where I love the late round guys. Like we loved our late round offensive tackles.
Couldn't get enough of
Cornerback
them.
just in this class, it feels a slightly top heavy compared to some other spots. And like you were saying, it's really tough because scheme is so tricky in college. Some college defenses are a total joke, not at all pro style,
Not even close.
and you can't compare them. And they're not playing. Some guys don't even get the chance to play press man coverage, and so you're like, how do I evaluate this guy? And then some teams are playing a ton of it,
Yeah.
and so you might overvalue a guy because you've seen him play press man, whereas another guy you haven't, and so you don't know what to make. So corner can be really tricky. Corner and safety are always tough, but scheme dependent, and it's what teams want and what they're looking for to fit what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, technique and style are a large aspect of this, and it is not as universal as it's almost as bespoke as like quarterback. And maybe even
Yeah,
quarterback is more generalized these days. You need someone who can throw the ball deep on top. Like everyone's looking for the perfect quarterbacks. You can get by with imperfect cornerbacks in the right scheme. Some guys who fit what you want to do. Some guys that if you put them on a different team, don't stand a chance in hell. And let's just get right into it, Jake. Let's start off with your number one guy. You are
yes.
all over him. This is a Jake stamp of approval player, Trey Amos from Ole Miss.
He's my favorite corner in the class. I just think he's the perfect cover three corner. He's a guy that you obviously will remember him. He transferred in from Alabama. I mean, All America, second team, All America. I mean, the amount of like All America, All SEC like mentions names that he had are just astounding. He was one of the guys that just transferred into this Ole Miss defense where they paid a price to build up this defense last year, and it was stellar. And I'm still mad at Jackson Dart that they were not in the college football playoffs because their losses were terrible. It's like they beat some
Yes.
good teams and they lost to teams that they should have beat, all because Jackson Dart just can't help himself but throw stupid interceptions. And I swear if he goes number 3, I'm going to lose my mind. I see the trades. I don't believe in him at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trey Amos is a guy I really believe in. I just think there's so much to like about him. I think he is ideal size, ideal length,
Mm.
and number one, I think his best trait, he's a total and complete understanding of where his help is on every single play. Like
Wow.
he knows where his safeties are going to be. He knows where his zone ends. He knows how to pass off route concepts. He stays in the hip pocket of receivers on the right side that he's supposed to. He's got long speed. He's got short area quickness. He's got length. He's more than happy to get involved in the run game. I would say negatively on longer route concepts, he's got a tendency to sit, can get a little flat-footed and wait for contact. That might lead to DPIs and just getting flat-footed in some uncomfortable spots. He'll have to learn. But in terms of like what I love about him, it's everything. He's super smooth, plays a lot of
Mhm.
cover three. Again, I really think he's a perfect cover three corner. Utilizes the sideline to his advantage consistently,
Huge.
watches the receiver's eyes to track the ball, just sets himself up to be in the right spot. I think he's an awesome corner. It's tough to have a full comparison. I don't think the size is the same, but Denzel Ward is a guy I
Okay.
like a lot of. It's a different frame, so it's imperfect.
Yeah, Denzel
Um,
Ward is strong and
yeah,
feisty, right?
yeah,
But
he's
I get where you're
so
coming from. You used a word there that I think we're going to use a lot. We really like smooth cornerbacks, guys who feel in control. And there's one player on this list, I won't say who yet, on your dudes, that I did not get that feeling at all. Like
oh, no, no,
usually
no, not at all.
we're in pretty good agreement. Uh,
Your guy is
well,
also
let's get it.
smooth.
Let's get it. I mean, Jai Barron just looks like he knows what he's doing on every snap, man. I can't get enough of this guy. I think a lot of teams, and he might get drafted very early here. Like he might be a top 20 pick because I think a lot of teams are going to see him as a very viable option in the slot. But if you like what Diamador Lenore offers the San Francisco 49ers, imagine that with just a twinge more refinement. Barron is out there. I use the word smooth as well. I also want to throw this one out there sturdy. He is an outstanding tackler. That is something that I make a non negotiable when we're talking about an early, I'm talking early, certainly even middle pick. You need to be able to tackle because we go back to game one of the 49ers season. Sauce Gardner, unquestionably a great cover corner. You know what he's not good at? Even approaching a tackle. And you know what the
The
49ers
49ers
did?
went right at him.
That's exactly right. And that happened a lot the remainder of the year with the Jets. I had, again, the displeasure of watching some other Jets games. I know you did as well. And smart teams kept that in their back pocket for when they needed it. And they could run the ball for 9 yards a clip right at Sauce Gardner. And that's only going to get worse until he shows that he can stop it. At some point, football does come down to he's the guy we're taking advantage of. They're either going to take him off the field, as the Jets did against the 49ers in week one,
Yep.
or he's going to force us to do something else. Sometimes it's as simple as that. With a corner, that is a very simple game to play, particularly in an NFL that is all about the outside stretch run. Especially too with these insert blocks where wide receivers are coming and moving left and right, and so you're getting pulled into the action sometimes in man-to-man.
And you got guys like Puka Nakua that are basically tight end wide receivers.
Yeah, that's right. Jawan Jennings or Puka Nakua's lining up from you. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you better be able to stand your ground there a little bit, and you better have some tenacity. And you can absolutely, not saying that it makes it impossible. There are great corners in this league that don't have anything to do, make business decisions nonstop. I don't think Deion Sanders made a tackle in his entire NFL career, but like I don't like that, and
I do.
especially come playoff time it is something that is going to get exploited because people are looking for any weakness and they will attack it relentlessly until it's stopped. Barron is someone who can play on the inside. I loved his smoothness on the outside. He was elite in zone coverage, which isn't as big of a compliment as it might come across because most everybody in college is playing a lot of zone coverage, but he had a great understanding of how to handle his hips, how to ride with somebody. The speed is there. There's just a smoothness to him. And last year, he had a passer rating against a 34. He scored two touchdowns from the slot the year
Yeah.
prior. I just think that Barron's a really, really solid player.
The ball's not coming your way. My superlative for him was ball skills. Like
Yeah.
I think has the best ball skills in this class. I think the upside is like the league leader in pass breakups and interceptions. That's the type of corner he is.
He's the kind of corner, too, that they just didn't even bother going his way. He had to find action
Yeah.
a lot of times. But when you come to the NFL, that's just not going to be the case. They're going to attack anybody. There's like but one or two corners in the entire league who don't get thrown at. And that might not even be true anymore. There's no Ty Laws. There's no Darrell Revises anymore.
Right.
If you're out there with the level of quarterbacks and the level of receivers, they're going to find you. And you need to have really good ball skills, especially if we're talking about an early pick.
That's maybe the one criticism I do have for him is being a zone corner. He's a guy who might give a little bit too much cushion and try a little bit too hard for picks. I
Mhm.
see him hunting those. It could
Yeah.
be a little bit of a Trayvon Diggs situation. That is the
Yeah.
downside I see.
Well, that's another guy who doesn't like tackling, right? So, like that, and maybe that's,
Right.
I agree with that assessment. I think that's a very fair criticism that he maybe played a little bit too much cat and mouse. But I have no problem with that when you show a tenacity on run plays and
Yep.
when you can play on the interior and you're a sneaky good blitzer and like you're a football player. Playing the cat and mouse game, just selling out for picks as Diggs didn't do anything last year for the Cowboys. Like that's the equivalent of some guy hitting 30 home runs in a year and then we never hear from him again. Sometimes things just work for you. Sometimes everything lines up
Yeah.
your way. I want someone who's just solid. And when we take it from a 49ers perspective, Diamador Lenore wants to play on the outside and then they slide him to the inside because of the base versus nickel. And I know that nickel is base, but the Niners do play a lot of 3 linebacker sets, even though they only had
Especially
one
with teams
linebacker.
running it down their throat, and then they had to.
So last year they really leaned into it against their. Well, I don't know who had good judgment on that team. Regardless, there's a similarity here where I think Barron could be. I think Barron would be outstanding in the slot. I would love him in the slot because now he's in the action. Now some of those traits that you pointed out can't show up because you're in it, baby. There's no off plays when you're in the slot, man. You are either killing in the run game or there are 5 people running in front of your face because it's the middle of the field on pass plays. So I would love him there, and then that allows Lenore to go outside full time. Maybe that's something they can consider, or maybe they just have 2 guys who can mix and match, and now you have a little bit of tactical versatility to where, okay, on one side you have Renardo Green, who, by the way, does have some tactical versatility, but you should never tap into that because he's really, really good at the one thing, which is being a zone corner on the outside. Like, let him do what he does so great. But with Lenore and Barron, you got some, pardon the French, you got some sons of bitches. Like these guys, they're shits. And that is the highest compliment. They're pests out there. And I just want to see mixing them in and out, putting one outside and one inside, depending on matchups, depending on it. It gives you a lot of options if you're Robert Saleh on how to attack. Let's talk about your mid-round guy because you want to talk about shit.
One guy before I get to him that I do want to mention, just because of the theme we're talking about here of guys who can't tackle. There's a guy in this class named Darian Porter out of Iowa State. And
I tried so hard. At 6'3", I wanted it so bad. I wanted it so bad, and it was so
I wanted it
tough.
too. So this is a guy that is projected sort of like a round 2-3 guy, and he can't tackle. He is. No. I literally have him as his superlative is weak. His superlative is weak. Because, listen, the upside to me is a starting zone corner with great speed. The downside is a soft boy who can't fight through contact, will be dominated in the run game by physical wide receivers and in press man, and basically flames out of league because he can't even be a special teamer. And then I think he's like a relatively small, very mobile corner. Like, he gets bodied. I've seen him on the ground constantly. He's really reliant on being like handsy to maintain contact. He can run with anyone vertically, but like sort of struggles with for a guy that's as fast as he is, he struggles with like sharp cutting routes. And he's anything with hesitation. He's like a deep cover corner, but he's going to be assaulted underneath, and he's just going to get destroyed. Like, I'm sorry, and I know this is harsh. I don't like to just rip on young players. He's going to get drafted. Maybe he goes to a good situation and he adds on weight and he takes time and he learns. But I have not seen any corner get pushed around in quite the way he does. It's being mocked as like a potential day 2 guy. And I can't get over it.
This is Porter from Iowa State. I'm with you. He's 6'3", 6'4" too. Like he doesn't play like, that way.
Yeah, he looks tiny the way he plays.
I'll tell you, he's a Kella Witherspoon.
That's who I have as my comp.
He's a Kella Witherspoon. And Kella Witherspoon is still in the league. I think he's on his 3rd, maybe 4th team.
Right.
And no one seems to want to have him on their team. They're just I guess we have a Kella Witherspoon now. 3rd round pick back by the 49ers. So hopefully they don't make that same mistake again because I'm with you. Sorry
to get so riled up and destroy this young man's career.
Let's get riled up and let's talk about something that we love. And listen, I went to the University of Missouri. I am a Tiger through and through. I hate the Jayhawks, but I love Kobe Bryant, and you do too.
This is going back to Renardo Green, Shrine Bowl, like physical, long press man corner who's just mean. Like, who's really mean, who like has the same Lenore edge of like talking trash to you, but he's like longer than Lenore. He's like a ball hawk who had, what was it? He had three or four interceptions last year. and he's just, or
It's
maybe
outstanding.
he had more than that. I think.
Might
Yeah,
have
he
had
had
like
4
6 or 7.
interceptions. Yeah, he had 4 interceptions. He had 3 in one game
That's right.
against Houston.
There you
That's
go.
why I was getting confused. In the
Yeah.
Shrine Bowl, he popped off the tape. Him and JJ Pegues were the two guys where you're like, all right, these are problems. You just
And
saw
and
him.
and to be noted, like
Yeah,
his tenacity was what popped off, right? He played very well. It wasn't like he was just an annoying blank, and
right.
not that we have any restrictions on swearing here. I don't know what I'm doing, but it wasn't that. It was that it, it was so above and beyond. It popped, and he had the performance to back it up. And everybody out there is talking all their shit. They are bringing 120% of themselves, right? They are trying to impress. So nobody is just ho humming at a invite bowl. Nobody is just going through the motions. They're all bringing it, right? The amount of wide receivers who were just doing the running man just to get any inch of
And again,
separation.
it should favor them. It should favor
Right.
the offensive player for the most part because they can kind of do anything. And he was all over
But
it.
Kobe Bryant just won and won and won. And you look at a lot of the specs and you go, I don't get it. But you know what? There's a lot of really good players in the NFL who it doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't work that simply. But if it was as simple as just here are the best athletes, they're now the best football players, it wouldn't be a very fun game to watch.
I think when you look at the 49ers specifically, you need another corner. If you get a situation where you have Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, and Kobe Bryant as your three corners, these are like mean, annoying, physical
Yeah.
young corners who are going to
Yeah.
talk trash to you, who are
Yeah.
going to be really tough in man situations, and who can play zone and love to get involved in the run game. I just think that's like a foundation that is so tantalizing and promising that like I love Trey Amos. I think he like is going to probably go at the end of round 1 instead of be available round 2. Like I
Right.
think he's the third best corner in this class.
Would you trade
Really,
up? Would you trade up into the bottom of round 1 to go get him?
yeah, I would. I would. I mean, that's what I keep doing in my mocks is I trade down and then I trade back up for Trey Amos. That's what I keep doing because I love him. But if you don't get him, I really do love Kobe Bryant, and I have a hard time thinking he's not going to succeed as a starting corner in this league. He's going to be good in press situations. I think cover 3 he's solid in. Like he's physical. He might get high on his own supply a little
Oh yeah.
bit, but
Oh
but
yeah.
corners like wide receivers need to be delusional.
That's right. And they have to have a short memory, right? Like that's where the
Yep.
delusion comes in. I am God. You will never get a pass off against me. I have no problem with that.
Right.
Listen, you got to
Like
play with
like
swagger. That position, you have to play with swagger.
like Jabbar Muhammad is a corner out of Oregon who I kept trying to like and don't quite like, and
He's got
he's
the traits.
undersized and he
Yeah.
doesn't seem to want to tackle, but he's in love with himself. And like he's playing against Jeremiah Smith and he's like talking trash and like
That's right. If you
I don't necessarily think he's gonna be great, but he believes in himself. And I
it
gotta
really
give him credit for that.
think about what happens if you get drafted now, okay, you're going, let's just use oh, I don't even, everything is in such flux, but you're just going up against the Vikings in a game, and Justin Jefferson is lined up across from you, or Naylor's lined up across from you,
Right.
or Addison's lined up across from you, and you're just getting worked because there's two elite receivers on that one team, so you can't hide anywhere. Like you better have some internal confidence. You better have some rebar in your
Yeah.
roadways because otherwise, like that's enough to make you wonder if you should quit the game those guys with the way that the rules are bent for offense and you're going up against Justin Jefferson or you're going up against Puka Nakua, yeah, you're going to quit. You're going to quit if you don't have that internal infrastructure to say, I am the man. So you have to have that confidence, and that confidence is infectious too. It might be annoying. It's unquestionably annoying.
Oh yeah.
But it's
Especially
infectious.
in training camp. Like Kobe
Oh,
Bryant's gonna start some fights in training camp, no question, but it's gonna be the good kind.
well, yeah,
Well, it
he's
depends
good.
how many there are.
He is the exact kind of player who it takes half of the year for him to get in because the coaches hate him so much. But once
Right.
he's in, he never leaves.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is. I mean, we've said Diamador Lenore's name a lot. Diamador Lenore is a very rich man because he has a lot of these temperaments. And again, like Diamador Lenore is not the strongest, the fastest, the tallest, whatever,
Yeah.
but he thinks that he's the greatest, and he goes out there and is really effective night in, night out.
Totally. And just as an aside before we get into your guy, so I'm looking up the KU football, like they get little bios where a
Yeah.
staffer asks them some questions, and Kobe Bryant gets asked, "Who's your biggest role model?" And Kobe Bryant says his biggest role model is Kobe Bryant. And he
The
says, "My parents
basketball player.
named me after him because they knew I was going to have a big dog mentality." And that, let me tell you, is exactly what I want to hear from a corner. That is number one. It's I know it's really corny and absurd to be like a toddler who's like, I'm a big dog,
I'm
but
a
like
big
that's what
dog.
I need to hear. It's awesome.
That is, sometimes you want the like where combine's going on, you want the numbers to match up with the tape, right? You want the bios to match up with the tape too.
Yep.
You don't want Kobe Bryant, like world class drink stirrer, to be like, I love volunteering on the weekends. He might,
Right.
but like you don't want him
Right.
talking like that. He might be the nicest, sweetest dude, but like
Right.
let's
You
just
want him to
call it
be
what it
like,
is. This
yeah,
dude's got the crazy. This dude loves football and he particularly loves vengeance. Like
big
there
time.
is something about that with the corner because it is a no-win job. You have to have a screw loose to play that at the highest level. Kobe Bryant, and we mean this as a true compliment, has more than one screw loose. He is a blast to watch, and he is going to be box office, baby, for whatever team gets him. He is going to win headlines and hearts, and probably some football games too. Let's talk about another Kansas school and my guy Jacob Parrish, who Jacob Parrish does not have any of those qualities of a Kobe Bryant, right? Now, I will say this: he's stout. Jacob Parrish, when he plays, he's out there. He has crazy speed. He is a 100 and 200 meter champion, speed for days, and he plays physical. This is another guy who I'm thinking round 3, round 4 could move up. He's got some opportunities here, especially with that speed. People are going to get excited. Another guy who's just a great tackler, someone who likes playing football as opposed to somebody who's out there trying to like settle a score. Some cornerbacks have like vendettas as their concept.
Right.
Like, I'm going to shut this guy down. They got all the thinking about how they can get off all their cool new celebrations, even if it was a completely errant pass. Jacob
Yeah.
Parrish is out there to like just put in a hard day's work. It's honest work, and I'm going to just lock up this corner. And he's smooth. He's well-rounded. He just looks like a pro. I love how he is able to flip his hips open. He played a lot of square up, which is not something you see a lot. And he played a lot of snaps without cushion at Kansas State, which is another thing that I appreciate. We got to see it. You mentioned off the jump that maybe we have some biases towards guys who do that. I got some biases towards Jacob Parrish. I can see him do it. I don't have to extrapolate. I'm taking what I got, which is somebody who is just going to be a rock solid third corner who has upside, no doubt, but someone who
Yeah.
you can just slot in there. He's on the outside. You never worry about number 2 corner. Probably isn't going to ever have like a 5-pick season, but he'll give you 1 or 2. He has adequate ball skills. What I enjoyed most is his tape against Arizona, somehow in the same conference these days. And McMillan, who is supposedly a top 10 pick, had one unbelievable catch. Totally contested.
Great contested catch player.
Unbelievable contested catch. It was such a good contested catch that you give it to the cornerback where you're like, that's perfect coverage. Like, that's just a great catch. That's the kind of catch that makes a wide receiver get Mike Evans comparisons and top 10 pick expectations. That one. The rest of the game, though, Arizona spent it trying to get away from number 10 on Kansas State, and they weren't able to do it all that often. And I can tell because McMillan didn't do squat otherwise unless they ran a quick drag route against zone coverage. He couldn't get downfield on this dude to save his life. That's the best wide receiver in this class, unless you feel some way about Luther Burden. And Jacob Parrish just had him in jail in that game. Those are the kind of tapes that when we're talking about a mid-round prospect, you go, who's the better player here?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about this guy and not that guy? Is it consistently that good? No. Does he have some problems staying, attached to some guys over the middle and man-to-man? Absolutely. Who doesn't? Save for the best of the absolute best. But this is a guy who just looks like he's going to have no problem adapting to the pro game.
And I want to say, like, I complimented Trey Amos for understanding his help, for understanding route concepts and
Mhm.
positioning, using the sideline to his advantage. I see Parrish with some of those same traits. He seems like a really intelligent corner
That's right.
who understands how receivers are trying to attack him, how offenses are trying to attack scheme. And I think it's hard to teach that level of like cornerback IQ. You can learn and you can grow into it. And I think Diamador Lenore is someone that showed that you can really grow into that and have a better understanding. He said credited Brandon Staley for helping him with some things that in hindsight seemed fairly obvious. But but like when you have a foundation of being a smart corner who understands what the offense is trying to do to you, especially when they line up in certain formations, gives you like I think a relatively high floor. And I'm with you. I kind of see Parrish in that mold.
DJ Reed is a guy who a lot of 49ers fans are talking about maybe bringing back. He also went to Kansas State. It's not a one for one because DJ Reed is more of a fighter. He's more of a scrapper.
Yeah.
But they have a lot. There is a level of well-roundedness that I really like, and a level of no fuss that I like watching from a corner. Like it's not one for one, but it did pop into my head for a second. Maybe it was just flashing back to the uniforms. But I don't like fussy corners. Like Renardo Green last year, a lot of people are like, I don't get it. Well, he didn't have fuss. They got bored by competency. Jacob Parrish, you get kind of bored by his competency.
I didn't get bored watching Renardo Green.
Well, either did I, and I didn't get bored watching Jacob Parrish. And I don't want to make a one-for-one comparison because I think Green is a spectacular player, and we were both in full agreement that everyone was losing their minds and not liking it. But this is what I like in a corner. It's the same thing with Barron. It's like I just like somebody who seems to have their act together because you're going to need all of that when you're at the next level because it is an impossible job to be a corner in the NFL, whether you're inside or you're outside. Let's talk about your last guy.
Yep.
Jalen Smith.
You are not so much of a fan of Jalen Smith out of USC.
I don't like him. I just don't like him. I tried. And you know what? All the credit in the world to Jalen Smith if he proves me wrong. You noted this. We don't think very highly of the USC coaching situation. So,
no.
He looks athletic. That's cool.
As an NFL, like you're having to overcome being at USC, and there's two ways to look at it. And someone else, I think one of our commenters mentioned that they wouldn't draft anyone from USC, and I don't begrudge anyone for holding that opinion because I don't hold that program in high regard.
Blacklist them.
I think you can view it two ways. One, if you're a USC guy, don't trust it, which I don't. But you could say, well, they overcame being at that program and the fact that, like, fundamentally they're unsound and that he, in that system looked pretty good. Like their running back, yes. I keep wanting to call him Bucky Irving, but their running back looks great. But it's like these are guys that, like, because they're at USC, you're like not drafting them before day 3 under any circumstance. Jalen Smith, let's go positive first because we went with negative. He's like 5'11", 190, so he's small. But like my superlative is he's sticky. He's an incredibly agile corner who plays above that 5'11", 190, and he seems to have the fluidity to cover a different, variety of wide receivers. I think he could have a Diamador Lenore type of trajectory where he needs a little bit of time to develop, deprogram the USC brain out of him. But I think he has the tools to be really good on the inside or outside because of the movement skills. He glides around the field really well. He's the ability to maintain speed and connection against, double moves, and he tackles pretty well for his size. Snaps his head around to the ball really well and can move while maintaining speed horizontally, vertically, downhill. I had optimistically shades of Lenore and Max Melton. I don't think he's nearly as physical. Max Melton was much more impressive to me on tape, but in terms of size, in terms of movement skills, and the willingness to be involved in the run game, the downside is, again, 5'11", 190, and he gives way too much cushion at times and needs to have a way better understanding. Like I watched a 3rd and 5 where he's playing 10 yards off.
That's exactly.
And he just gives up a blaze out.
And how much? Like, how much of that is coaching? How much of that is coaching, and how much we hate the USC coaching staff? But Jake, did you not see the tentativeness on the tape? Did you not watch a guy who did not either couldn't see it or didn't trust what he saw? Because that's all I saw. I saw all of these traits, and I never saw them actually come to full fruition because he was stuck between stations.
I saw inconsistency. I saw like he was in between two minds about things. I
A
did see
lot.
times where yeah, I did see times where he was hesitant to trigger towards the ball, and that gives me pause. And again, he's day 3, but I think the movement skills and the way he can get involved is pretty promising to me. But I do think you're right. Like he has a lot to learn about playing the position, and maybe he is too hesitant, and maybe it's not just coaching. Maybe he's a guy that just prefers to play off and doesn't trust himself, getting beat over the top, and he wants to protect against
Yeah.
that. But I do think it's something where late round, a guy who, if you believe in his aggression and the athletic ability that he flashes,
Yeah.
like you say, all right, I can see it, and I believe we can turn this guy into a nickel and a corner, and if he's willing and he gets a little bit stronger, he can be good for us on special teams too. He can be a really good gunner for us. Listen, I know he's undersized, but I
I just
do I
didn't see
do
it.
see I see the way he flies off the ball. I see a little bit of tackling ability. I'm not going to say
Okay.
he's an elite tackler, but again, this is a guy who's day 3. This is a guy who's day 3 in USC,
When we
which is
talk when
again,
we talk day 3, we talking 6th, 7th round. We talking 4th or 5th.
yeah, I would say 5th, not anywhere near. I would say not before the 5th. 5th, 6th is kind of where I have him,
Okay.
but I do think there's a lot to like. There's a lot he needs to learn.
I'll give
I
you
don't
that.
think he's going to be a day 1 like perfect.
No, no, no.
Oh, he's going to succeed, but if he can get it, if he's willing to learn, if he's a quick learner, he can by year 2 be a really interesting corner and somebody that you could say could be like a Lenore sort of backup.
I mean, we are like 40 Lenore references by now, but it is
Yeah.
somebody that is high on the mind here when we talk about the 49ers, and obviously a player that we both have a great affinity for. My issue, Jake, is I don't think that you can teach. Instinct is the wrong word, but you cannot. If he was that tentative at the college level, what's going to happen when the game is that much faster at the pro level? I'm not a big fan of Big Ten football. I think Big Ten football requires a pretty significant leap for the NFL, much more so than the SEC. I almost treat the Big Ten closer to like the Big 12 and the ACC as sort of a lesser conference.
But what happened? But all the SEC teams lost, Dieter.
Well, there's one great Big Ten team. You don't think that Ohio State? I mean, clearly Ohio State could fit in with the rest
Right.
of the SEC, and I don't want to get into a conference war here. My point is merely like USC is not at the same level as another mediocre
I
team in
genuinely
the SEC.
forgot they're in the Big Ten now.
I know. Well,
That's
and
so
UCLA's
stupid.
there too. It is very stupid. We were just talking about Rutgers and Washington being in the same conference. America's doing great, but I I'm of the mindset that like, okay, the Big Ten is a level, right? It's we're not talking about a guy from South Alabama or Utah State here. We're talking about someone who played at US Flippin' C, whether it was in the Pac-12, which had an incredible year in its final soiree, and then the Big Ten, which does include Minnesota and Maryland. And like in that, if you're tentative there, what happens when here's here's Jameer Gibbs coming at you? Like maybe, and I'll give you this. I see the traits that you're pumping up about this guy. I see them. I don't disagree with them. I don't think they're actualized. I think you had to dig deep to find them. And maybe the NFL game is so fast that there's no opportunity to be tentative. So it's either shit or get off the pot. And then
Yeah.
all of these, now he has to play instinctually. Maybe we're not giving him enough credit for being a smart guy and something to that effect to where he's overthinking it. And now he can't overthink it. And so it will just click through. I just don't know
Yeah.
I'm willing to take it because I don't see the crazy. I don't see the crazy. And at that
That's
position, I have to have that tenacity and I have to
that's
have
fair.
the instinct.
I think he's less tentative than you're saying, but I think it's a fair criticism, and he
Yeah.
definitely is not a guy that you go, "Oh, he's got it immediately." You watch and you see it, the traits that I'm talking about, but you do want more of like, "Hey, go murder someone." Like
Just
just
fire.
go
Just
just
be
right.
willing to make a
Um
mistake. Fire. Do
I'm
something. Because
willing I'm willing to cut him
yeah,
some slack because USC is USC. But, you know,
that's the USC curve is going to get us every time. Let's talk about the name alone. O'Donnell Fortune. first off, spectacular work. Dieter Kurtenbach to you, O'Donnell Fortune. I'm not going to lie here, Jake. Like, I'm not in love with O'Donnell Fortune. Like, the offensive lineman.
And I'm not in love with Jalen Smith, let's be clear.
No, like, we do not feel some type of way about these late picks. These are blind dart throws. There's something there that we can agree, at least with ourselves, because we couldn't agree on Smith. But like, we can see and we just go, hey, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. We usually like to have a little bit more than that. Like with the offensive lineman, like I was fending off late guys. I could have gone with 7 or 8 other offensive tackles for the late pick because I liked so much of them, and they made me feel positive, right? And feeling does matter. And not to go full Maya Angelou here, but like when you have to make the call and put in the card, you need to feel good about it. And it's hard for me to say that if, hey, they call up Dieter and Hutch on draft day and go, hey, we got this 7th pick at 228. Who should we take? Like, I'm not going to be like, you need to take O'Donnell Fortune right now. Like, no, it'd be like, I guess you could take O'Donnell Fortune. But here's what I see. A 6'1", 185. So he needs to put on some weight, but 6'1", plays big.
It seems like all of these guys, by the way, are 170 pounds.
Yeah, which is going great when you consider the size of wide receivers. Like Nick Harbor next year. Like, my God. Nick Harbor hasn't even played football well yet. What happens when that happens? And by the way, South Carolina is going to be a force next year. I see a lot of traits that you're looking for in a true zone coverage cornerback, right? Somebody who opens up the hips, can ride the sideline, can keep his eyes in the backfield, all of these things. If you're putting him in zone, he's a really good player. I thought he was great against Alabama this past year. I thought he was really good against Mizzou this past year. Those are 2 big-time games for South Carolina. He played really well, and I think he has pretty good ball skills. Does he tackle? No. No, he doesn't. He's not really interested in doing that.
After we did our 15-minute diatribe on how we don't take corners.
I don't know if I'd take O'Donnell Fortune. Like, legitimately, I was struggling. Like, how much time
I said
spent
at the start, late round corners are tricky in this one, especially.
It is a blind dart throw. It is, here is a singular trait and like 50 things I don't like, but we're just going to ride the one trait. And I like the fact that O'Donnell Fortune seems very comfortable in zone coverage. He seems very good at that. That's not a bad thing to be good at going in. Now, I will say this, a late round corner should, as you noted with, Smith, they should be special teamers. I don't know if O'Donnell Fortune's going to be a special teamer either. I'm not doing a great sell job here. I'm not going to lie.
You know what I do love though? You have a combination of Barron, Parrish, and Fortune that just feels like it's just like a fuck, marry, kill from the 1800s. And they're like, would you rather be a Barron, a Parrish, or have a Fortune?
Barron,
I love
Fortune
that. I feel like that
sounds
completed, everything you had.
It sounds, obviously I was going for something there subconsciously, but Barron, Parrish, Fortune sounds like a Chinese brand that's sold on Alibaba, where it's just like the broken English, just like, this is a Barron, Parrish, Fortune. It's just random word generator. You watch him and you go, hey, yeah, he could be that as a pro. He could be exactly that as a pro, which is the 15th best second corner in the NFL.
This is the best sell job of all time.
You're just in a constant state of like, could we?
You just liked the name, didn't you?
No, like legitimately, I kind of like the tape. It was hard to find good tape because, as we talked about in a previous episode, I hate the South Carolina All 22. Hate it.
Again,
can't stand it.
Yeah, and I watched Jabbar Muhammad, and I was like, come on, no, I can't do it.
That's going to be our new bit, just complaining about All 22 film. But O'Donnell Fortune, just a zone cover. If you're looking for someone who's going to come in and be able to play in a zone-heavy scheme, who is going to be able to ride with a wide receiver, taking a 9 route, doing a deep dig, anything like that, be able to hang with them, be competent in that, and be able to pick off a couple of passes, O'Donnell Fortune can absolutely do that. And I thought he had some tenacity in the red zone. When you had to get him in close quarters, he was pretty good in those situations. I think his pick last year was in the red zone. So you put on the tape against Bama. Jalen Milroe is a divisive prospect. I get that, but Jalen Milroe is a pretty good quarterback. I like Jalen Milroe
Well,
still,
I
even though his Senior
disagree.
Bowl was god awful.
I think he's very athletic, and I do think he's a guy that, like, when he figures it out, you're like, oh, he learns from his mistakes. He makes a lot of mistakes to learn from.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. My point is merely like Alabama was not a schlub on offense this year, right? And I thought Fortune had his best game against Alabama, and I thought that he was a real factor in that contest. And I thought that, Luther Burden had one good rep against South Carolina, and the rest of the game he was kind of persona non grata. And I thought that had a lot to do with Fortune. So he had some very good players around him. That will certainly be the case at the NFL level. And I'm talking strictly here as a 7th round dude. And the Niners have picks 223, 232, and 255. Now, of course, by the time the draft starts, that won't be the case. But they have three 7th rounders. You could do worse than somebody who you get him into the pro system and you can really hone in on what he's good at. That might be more than enough to stick around in the league for a while yet.
And you get to write in on the card O'Donnell Fortune. Come on.
Sometimes you got to have some fun, So let's just go quickly through who our guys were here. Let's go through Jake's real fast. Trey Amos, Kobe Bryant, and Jalen Smith, who we don't love that much, but at least I don't. And then Jahdae Barron, Jacob Parrish, and O'Donnell Fortune, who might have only been in there as a bit. It is kind of a tough corner class. It is. Yeah. You were calling it top heavy. I mean,
I don't know about fully top heavy. I think like top middle heavy, like in the middle of the top part of the sandwich. You made a weird sandwich where the bottom of it, you put the lettuce on the bottom, and there's a bunch of lettuce on the bottom, and then the meat is sort of near the top. You built the sandwich wrong. You built a bad sandwich, is what I'm saying.
I think suffice it to say we're not in love with the late round guys, but you know what? This is the hardest position. I'll reiterate it now so that we can cover our asses. The hardest position to evaluate, I think. Even safety. Safety is really tough if you don't have the All-22, and it's still tough when you do. But corner is such a specific and fickle.
Yeah, and safeties get put in a variety of different roles where you can see different traits, and corners are in one spot. And if the ball's not coming their way, or if they're not going against a team with talent, or if they're not playing the right scheme, you're like, what are you? I don't know what you are.
So many things have to go right to get a good read on a corner, which means you got to watch a lot of tape.
NFL teams face the same issue where they go, I don't know what he is. I hope he's this.
And that's where we're at. Maybe O'Donnell Fortune will fall upon us and we'll get these picks right. All right, Jake, I just want to remind everybody here that if you subscribe to the Dieter and Hutch podcast, we would, 1, appreciate it. And 2, if you become an official sicko, you can get
in a couple months before the draft.
Not that many months.
Yeah, month and a half, roughly.
That's on me. I'll get to it. Our draft guide, which is like tens of players, perhaps even hundreds.
It literally will be hundreds, and it's breaking me a little bit. But I'm also enjoying it. And people ask, why are you doing this to yourself? Because I actually want to.
Why you do it then, baby Billy? Because I'm selfless.
I want to do this. That's what being a sicko is. And if you become one, you will get the draft guide when it's out. We will let you know when it's out. We are working hard on it.
Become a sicko. Subscribe if you don't want to do that. And we'll talk to you in the next one.